No.
Sorry, I just have to.
That's fine.
We don't want traffic. We're used to
Agreed.
moving around. So, that's good? Okay.
All right.
So I'm gonna count down to 5, and then after 1, you can start talking.
No,
Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, go.
So good afternoon, everyone. Iesha, thank you so much. We're here in Harlem. We're at Street Corner Resources, and I'll allow everyone to go around the room in a moment, but I'll just set the stage. About a couple months ago, we were at the National Action Network, as I recall, and as part of the reform initiative that's taken place throughout New York City, we stopped there for a listening tour. And Iesha, you came in, and you were not shy.
Never.
And you voiced a concern about the lack of youth in attendance and how important it was. And we agree, and that led to this meeting today. So today we're here to have an honest, open, and really a hard discussion, I think, about what's happened in New York City over the last years, but really what's come to a head this year. And, you know, where are we as a city? Where are we, certainly as a police department from, you know, I'm joined here by Jamel, local captain from the local precinct. But, you know, what's next? Where do we go from here? And what has to happen for us to all really get to a place where we want to be? And I think that's, you know, we're going to talk about a lot of topics, but I hope we talk about a lot about communication. About working together, about what we have to do, partnering together. How do we do it in a way that doesn't alienate everyone? But that I think that there's too much right now when you look at really this country, this city. Over the last 4+ years, there's an awful lot of yelling and talking over people. And I think we got to talk to each other. So I just want to thank you for the invitation to be here today. I'm thrilled to be here. And looking forward to what you and you and you and you and Iesha, you really have to say. So thank you.
Well, one, I am grateful to have you in our space. I think that this was perfect, rather than us having, and I've been to many meetings over the years before your leadership with NYPD. I went to many meetings, but they didn't come to us like this. You know, I don't remember too many where NYPD showed up, especially the commissioner, in our spaces, right? That felt comfortable enough to have dialogue. So one, I wanted to say I'm grateful for the opportunity to have real dialogue. And I want to say that I just want to make one correction, that when we were at the National Action Network, actually some young people were turned away.
That's right.
And so when people heard my voice on the live, which I see that it was watched a lot, right? And it looked like people wanted to hear what I was saying, but I was really upset because it took a lot to encourage young people to come to a place where there was so much police presence to have a conversation about reform. And that's because that's what the meeting was about. So we had a dialogue before we came over. Some was my staff, and I think 1 or 2 young people were the young people on our the mayor's social distancing team, right? So they were disappointed. They said, see, this is what happens. And I didn't want for any of us to be wrong in giving them a voice. But I had to say something. So I've since had conversation with Chief Holmes. I have her title correct, right?
Yep.
Chief Holmes. And she didn't know that that was happening at the time. And I just wanted to make sure really that didn't happen again to any young people, not just young people from my program. And so I'm grateful to have young people in the room right now, and we can always make the correction and, you know, and be solution driven and move forward. And so I think that that's where we are right now, in a place where we want to hear what young people have to say. So I just want people to know that Street Corner Resources is part of Pure Violence here in New York City, part of the crisis management system, out of the mayor's office to prevent gun violence. We are very proud, very, very proud of our work. It often gets very difficult and hard to see as much violence and hear, you know, even in language violence, but we do the work, and I'm grateful. You'll hear from Captain Altahiri, if I have his position right. I can always call him by his last name, just, Altahiri's, But we have been working, over the time of the pandemic, really, really hard together. And I think that's where, even though we had done work before that, not a whole lot, but I think that it became even more exemplary to me how police should work with community, and especially community organizations, if I may say that. The other is, our team is here, Joshua Marte is the leader of our Street Corner Resources Speak Peace Forward team, and they are the ones on the street at the hospitals interrupting and de-escalating violence. So I don't know, Josh, if you want to quickly say something?
I would like to say, I'm glad we're having this opportunity. I'm glad we're going to be able to have this, conversation with some of the kids that, we work with every day. And just a quick point that this is good for us because the interaction that they get from here, they're going to take it back to their other peers. And then that's going to lead to how they feel about NYPD, how they feel about us helping them connect with NYPD and to understand what this engagement is all about. So I just want to say that this is very important to us, and I'm glad that we're here. I'm allowed to be here, and they are as well.
Mm-hmm. We'll keep moving around just so we can make introductions.
Captain Jimmy Altieri, Executive Officer of the 32nd Precinct, Central Harlem. It's really an honor to be here. I just want to say thank you for your kind words, but a lot of what I do is inspired by great leadership. And that leadership comes from Commissioner Shea, like you said, him coming here and actually taking away from his time, from his busy schedule, to listen to you and the youth. So it's really the leadership at NYPD that really inspires me. And when we talked about prior about neighborhood policing and how the police and the community work together, not necessarily, when you talk about talking to each other, when I deal with you, we're not really talking to each other, we're actually talking with each other.
Absolutely.
So it's a real difference. And I think as long as we continue to do that, and that we're not talking to each other when bad things happen, but we continuously talk to each other and plan and hopefully prevent some of the violence that you spoke about.
Absolutely. And we'll get a chance to talk
Great
about
point.
that
Yeah.
more. Christina?
Hello, my name is Christina. I'm 17 and I'm from Harlem. And I just wanted to say thank you so much from people like the captain, Iesha, and the commissioner. I'm so grateful that you guys actually take the time and are willing to listen to young people rather than ignoring us like everyone else does.
Hello.
Thank you, Christina. Larry?
Hello, my name is Larry. I'm 19 years old and I also grew up around in this area. And I'm glad to be here today because I see change in this room. From all the violence as well as altercations with police officers. I thank you a lot, Commissioner, for hearing us out on behalf of the youth because we're the future. Like we need our voices to be heard and we need to talk to whoever's in charge, and I'm glad that you came.
Thank you.
Peter?
Good afternoon, my name is Peter. I'm 19 years old. I work with Street Corner Resources. I'm one of the youth workers. I just want to also say thank you to the commissioner and Chief.
Captain.
Oh yeah, yeah, Captain. I want to say thank you to the both of you for having open ears to us, cause like my friend right beside me, Larry, said that we are the future, and we are the voice, and we need to, make some change out here in the streets, and it starts with us, having a voice and speaking up. So,
If I could, let me just open up the dialogue a little bit. We did something like this maybe a month ago in Brooklyn, and it was with much younger, couple really impressive young men and a young woman. And the session ended, I thought it was great. Anyone could go online and see it. But it ended, and I said, you know what, we need to get a little more raw, and we need to have hard discussions. We talked about a lot of important things there, but I think that, if we compliment each other for the next hour, that's great. But what I want to hear really is, What's going good, but what's going bad too.
Right.
And what do we need together? What do we need as a department? What's your experience? You know, because we have a lot of great ideas, and some of them work, some of them don't work. Some of them aren't carried out right. There's a lot of things that life gets in the way sometimes, but what is your experience? You know, when's the last time you had, you know, a bad interaction, a good interaction with a cop, right? Do you experience what we're trying to do? We're trying to reach youth, and I'll say this, and then I'll be quiet. We've shifted in the police department over the last 5-6 years intentionally. We've tried to make less arrests, less summonses, less stops. At the same time, we're not trying to have the city unsafe. We're trying to do it all. And I think we do some things right, we got to improve on others. We try to make more connection with cops. So the fact that you're talking to each other, something's working well, you know. And that's a credit to both of you. And the cops too. You know, we've put youth officers and youth coordination officers and neighborhood coordination officers out there. We've done a lot. Any experience with that? I'll start here to my left. Like, do you feel anything different in that sense? Do you have any relationship with local cops? Why not? You know, what can we do better? So, any thoughts on that?
Talk about your experience, Peter, some of the things that you brought up before.
Good or bad?
Maybe start with what's been difficult.
All right, so I did have an experience, a negative experience encounter with a cop when I was younger, like about 5 years ago. I was 14. I was on my way home, and it was like it wasn't late at night. It was about 7, 8 o'clock. And I was walking in a dark street, and then there was two white guys in the car, and one of them they stopped me. They yelled at me. They told me to come here, but they were plainclothes cops. I didn't know. I thought they were regular guys. I told them, no, I have to get home, because I didn't know them, so I didn't want to go up to them. So I kept walking, and then that's when they started driving fast, like trying to follow me around the corner. Then I stopped. I looked back. They told me to come here again. I picked up my pants because I thought I would have to defend myself, and I'm like, nah, I don't know y'all. What are you calling me over to your car for? And then they just jumped out the car with guns, and then I ran. And then I fell, I ran like a block, and then I fell on a tree, and then they came and they picked me up, threw me on the gate, and they started searching me, asking me questions. But at the time I was 14, so I didn't really know. I didn't even expect that, and I didn't know what to do, because I was a kid. I was 14. And that was just my negative encounter with a cop, or an undercover cop.
So how did that, if you don't mind, how did that experience leave you feeling going forward? Like, did it have an impact on the way that you see officers now, or you were okay?
It took me about honestly, it took me about like a year and a half to get over it. Up until I was about 17, 18, like I just recently started realizing, not all cops are bad. Feel me? But from that point on, that's when I said to myself, and I thought I realized, like, nah, cops are not it. Like, cops are bad. But I was younger, so now I realize, there are some cops out there, who do the wrong things, but not all cops are bad. So, but that's the way it impacted me, I never liked cops after that.
So for the purpose of this meeting is to not just, for us to explore some possibilities of what could have been different about that experience. What could have made you feel more comfortable?
What have made me feel more comfortable? First off, they What do you mean, like how?
Like you sounded like, from what I'm hearing, from what you're saying, I don't put words in your mouth, but it sounded like you were really a little scared.
Yeah.
You ran,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
So when you run, you're usually either playing or you're serious. So it sounds like you were trying to protect yourself in some way to get away from the situation.
Yeah.
What could have been done differently? Have you thought about it, or we could come back?
What I thought could have been done differently at the time, on their behalf, right?
Mm-hmm. In any way, what could have been done differently?
I feel like the cops, for one, should have just, they should have got out the. They should have got out their car and pulled out their badge and told me that they were cops, for one. And two, they should have asked me how old I was, because they did think that I was older than I was, because I was tall for my age when I was 14, so they thought I was older. They should have asked me my age, and they should have never jumped out their car with guns, because I thought they were robbers or kidnappers or something. Yeah, so they should have. Basically, they should have let me know that they were cops, and they should have. I felt like they should have asked me my age and where I was going before they did all that.
Peter, I think you were saying over the years your view has changed a little bit, and you recognize there's good cops, there's bad cops. Did something make that happen? Did you have any involvement with police officers here in New York, or you dealt with them more and saw different, or your view just changed over time?
Yeah, my view just changed over time, but I can't think of one positive encounter with a cop where he actually helped me. Yeah. So yeah.
Would you ever consider becoming a cop?
Would I ever be considered? Like, would I ever think about coming?
Yeah, you're a young man. Your future's in front of you. You can do anything you want to do. You put your mind to it. You can go over this way. You can go to school and study this. You could work. You could do what you want. Would you ever consider trying to become a police officer?
That's funny, because before that negative encounter happened with me when I was 14, I always said, my backup plan was to, go to school for law to try to become a detective or a police officer. But after that, I said, nah, I don't want to do that no more.
Okay. Thank you.
Larry, same thing. Just kind of share your experience with wherever you want to start sharing. It could be from the thing that was uncomfortable or didn't work for you to, what you did.
One negative encounter I had with the police was, I think
Speak up,
a year or two ago. I was coming from school with a couple friends on 161st Street near Yankee Stadium. And right near that Yankee Stadium is like a McDonald's, like a local McDonald's.
Right under the train.
Yeah, so we usually sit there because they have like places to sit, so we sit there and eat, laugh and stuff. And one particular, this particular day, I guess we were a little too loud maybe, and the officers started to come over and tell us, all right, we have to leave, but we weren't finished eating. So I'm like, officer, we're not finished eating. And I guess one of my friends, he made a remark, or he gave the cop a look, and I seen his hand reaching. I'm like, you know what, it's not even that serious. Let's just go. And I seen his the other officer in the car start to come out. So I'm like, I know I don't want to lose another friend to gun violence, as also from a police officer. So I just decided to tell everybody, let's just go to the park and we can eat, or we can go somewhere a couple blocks down and eat. And that was one of the only times I had a negative encounter with police.
How about any good encounters?
Good encounters. I've had cookouts in the summer, and I know certain park hours close earlier in the summer because they don't want any problems with the people that's outside. So what we'll do, my mom and I will do, is go early. We start early in the morning, put the grill out, set up, and the police would come to the side and say, "Oh, do you need any help?" And he helped us with the chairs, set the tables up, and it was right around here. So I'm like, "Oh, this is good." I haven't seen certain stuff like this lately. So first thing I thought, I'm like, "Oh, I hope he doesn't harass us, or I hope he doesn't like say anything negative." So, but that really kind of changed my perspective about how I look at inner city cops.
I just got one more question, and Larry and Peter, Christina too, but would you ever, a lot of people associate, you go to a police precinct, it's not good, right? There's a reason why. Maybe you're the victim of a crime, or maybe, there's a problem with something. Would you feel comfortable walking into a police precinct?
Yes.
I wouldn't feel comfortable walking into a police.
And why not,
station.
if that's the answer?
Because I feel a certain like injustice. Like I would just feel like I walk in, I just feel out of place. Knowing a certain thing that's going on in the city, it might be racially profiled. I've been racially profiled before. I think a cop thought I was somebody that I really wasn't, just because of the clothes I wore and the sport I played. So it was just I felt out of place, and I didn't feel comfortable at all. So
I would honestly say I wouldn't feel comfortable walking into a police precinct because, like he said, I feel like the justice would be missing, and like it's just the overall atmosphere. Like it's not like, I feel like cops should be looked at as heroes and stuff, and people that look up to. But it's like some of them you can't look at some of them like that, and I feel like walking into a precinct, they're not there to to make me feel safe. They're there, just because they're trying to do their job. That's it.
One of the things that we're struggling with now, I think you just hit it. I mean, and Christine, I heard you, so we'll come to you in a minute, right? I think you said you feel comfortable.
Yes.
But how do we create an environment where that changes that perception? You're here. You like working here. We'd like to be in a place. We do a lot of work with crisis management. How do we create an environment where you have a different outlook, and it's going to come a lot from our side, but it's going to come from both, I think. And so that you do have a different thought process of, that's a place I want to go. So like if you have thoughts or ideas, what does it take for the police? I could rattle off 50 things that, we're trying this, we're trying this, we're trying this, we're trying this. Well, none of those things work with you. So what are the things, this is where we do a lot of meetings, and we do a lot of meetings with the same people, which is why what you said at that meeting resonated with me, that like, you were pissed off.
I was.
And you basically said, you're calling a meeting, you're supposed to have the youth here. Well, here's the youth, and you don't let them in. And you were right. We were wrong. And
I thank you too for hearing that.
Oh yes.
For hearing that. A lot of folks wouldn't hear that. They would. And in the past, when I would say things like that, it's easy to make the person who has a different voice in the room to make them wrong because they're saying the right thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
all fingers point toward you. But we really hearing their voices, even it touches me a certain way just listening to them right now.
Right, yeah. No,
Yeah.
great. And so what is it that we could do? What are we missing that would you think, maybe it's not even you, but you're thinking about your friends or other young men and women that would break down those barriers?
Connection.
What is it?
Connection.
Yeah, how?
To be honest, I feel like it's nothing wrong with putting cops on the streets and having them interact with, you know, the kids in a positive way.
Yeah.
Like for example, each neighborhood should have, you know, like you know, a certain, you know, certain police officers, you know, where the people and the kids in the neighborhood know who that officer is, so they build that relationship, that positive relationship, you know, between them, and you know, it'll be more, you know, more peace and stuff.
We have right now 1,500 with another 300 going in. Young men and women in our police academy. If you could say one thing to them, what would you tell them? What would be the piece of advice you would give them? Because they're coming out here to, go ahead, Christina.
One thing that I would tell them is to not judge people based off their skin color, because I feel like everyone, the same way that everyone can be guilty is the same way that everyone can be innocent. I always believe that, so you should never look at somebody just because they're dressed a certain way and think that they're gonna do something wrong. Always give the person a chance to show them how they act before you go and judge them based off of their skin color or the way that they look.
Can't go wrong with that one.
I would say the same thing because as a young black man, and my family, like, we don't really like encounters with police. We always feel like it's gonna end wrong. There's been plenty of times that my parents didn't think I was gonna, like, they were worried because I came home too late, and they all these visions of scenarios of me not coming. They were like, "Oh, did you run into anybody? Are you okay?" And I think what Christina just said, I think we just need to give them a chance, as well as us. You know, don't judge us. Don't judge me because, oh, I'm walking to school with a book bag and basketball, or like, don't judge me because my parents are kind of sad. So just give me us a chance, and we'll give you guys the same chance as well.
Just going back to what we were speaking about in the beginning, I just wanted to say, I grew up in a household where my mother told me from when I was a little girl to not trust officers because my sister's father was actually shot by an officer when she was 2 years old. And my mom always tried to keep my family connected to the police department that's actually across the street from my house, PSA 6. My sister was an explorer, I was an explorer. We both always had great interactions with officers. They were always supporting us, keeping the togetherness in the community. But as I got older, I started to realize that they weren't feeling the same way anymore. I didn't feel that sense of support anymore. I didn't feel that connection, that love, like they were a part of my family, because people started to leave. And when the new people were coming in, it was just like, you're in the community, but you're not helping us. You're not trying to get in touch. You're not trying to hear our problems. You're just there for other people. You're not even there for us. And I know, like, when officers came years ago, when I used to go through things, I remember officers, they used to help me a lot. But then when I went to a party with my friends, and officers came and they shut the party down, and we were all leaving. We were actually crossing the street in the Bronx, and the officer told us to leave, and we told him that we were leaving. We were respectful. We weren't saying anything to get them mad or anything, because we know that cops are not afraid to shoot you, especially if you're black. And we didn't do anything. We were walking, and the cop drove through us, literally. He drove his car through me and my friends. None of us got hit, thank God. All of us moved out the way, but I felt I felt disrespected. Like, you saw me less as a human just because I was leaving a party and because I'm black. And you see me with people, we weren't doing anything negative. We were just trying to get home. You didn't give us that chance to even get that connection with you to hear what was going on in the party before you even tried to kill us. But I don't look at all officers the same way, because I know that there are good officers out there. I know that there are people out there who are trying to help us, who are looking out for us, who are in the streets making sure that we're okay, because I've experienced that before. That's why I said I wouldn't be afraid to enter a police department, Because I know that there are some officers in there who will walk up to me and ask me if I need help with anything, especially at the 32nd precinct.
It's good to hear. So you were an explorer.
Yes.
You had experiences that were good, but then it broke apart a little bit.
Yes.
Okay.
Josh, did you want to say anything? Because you're quiet as a church mouse.
Josh is taking it in.
No, with the young people, they saying it all. One thing I would add in, because I've had a lot of negative experience with cops, not just like on a one-on-one basis, but just like from seeing it daily. But for me, I had an interaction that really took me all the way away from, like I used to be, as a kid, you come up, you think, all right, it's the right to be a cop when before you're like 6 or 7. But then after that, whether your household teach you, whether it's the neighborhood, whether what you see them, I don't know 5 guys right here, there was a gun picked up here. So when I see the cops coming to bother them, I'm thinking bother them. I'm hearing what's going on in the neighborhood. So I feel, that's what I'm starting to feel. But I didn't, that's what I was starting to see. That's not what I felt. Until I was about 13, 14 years old, and I started getting size on me. And when I was younger, my mother didn't allow me to look like everybody else. And as I got older, I started to get my own coats, my own sneakers. And then I noticed that was the way I wore my stuff, the way I folded my clothes on it would cause me to get bothered by police. And I still wasn't upset at cops until I had one officer. I didn't know about selling drugs. I didn't know guys stash crack in between, the private areas. I didn't know people ripped holes and did things to their jacket to hide stuff from cops. I had no idea about this. And I'm innocent. That's what, just so everybody understand that. 14 years old, when I say I'm innocent, I'm not upset at police. I'm not upset about anything. I'm just going to school. I'm happy. I'm going to the school. My mom had me in a charter school. I got my tie. I feel good. I feel great walking to school. And this kid, a friend of mine, who may have been a problem, I'm walking with him. Now, not that it's a right for him to get bothered, but I understood what he was into. But so I felt exempt from that treatment. And I kept trying to walk, and I didn't sit down and do anything. I knew they were coming for him. I just kept walking. My mother trained me every day, drilled me. I'm walking. And like when I felt this cop hand grab me, it almost changed my whole life. Cause I'm like, all right, I know I don't even deserve this grab now. I want to just go to school. I'm scared. I don't want to get in trouble by my mom. I didn't get a chance to explain myself. I was pushed on the wall, and the other cops pulled up in the car. This what made me really upset was that the other standing cops were in cahoots with this. They make a line, almost you can't see what's going on, and this officer starts to go in my private areas. And then they asked him, they said, do you want a pair of gloves? He said, no, I'm good like this. He went inside all our behinds and everything, and all of our sneakers in the cold, got us standing in the cold, all our sneakers. I'm 14, I can't cry, which was the problem. I couldn't cry because I got my boys here, I gotta act tough now. Now the police are part of putting me through this trauma. I didn't understand that, I'm just saying that now. But at that moment, I'm standing here on the floor, my toes on the floor, somebody just rammed their hands through my backside, and they're there, hand sanitizer, cleaning hands, and they don't find anything. Now I'm just happy, like, all right, we're good, we're gonna go? No, you're not gonna go. They to justify this interaction and the wrongfulness that how they was treating us, they wrote me a summons for disorderly conduct. Or, I'm sorry, I don't know if it was disorderly conduct or with resistance, but they wrote me a BS ticket. And that started me to feel like a criminal. It went from me being embarrassed to talk about it to me now showing my boy, yeah, these faggot cops just gave me a ticket. Yeah, now I'm a part of, basically NYPD sent me running to people that understood this, that understood the interactions between police. And I don't want to be long, I didn't want to be long, but I just wanted everybody to get the feel of that situation of somebody being innocent and thinking that police will never, I can understand, I would never think a cop would do that at this point. I was naive. And then to change it, and I went to a nice school, I went to FDA Academy, and the way you had to go there was you had to behave a certain way, you had to act a certain way, everything you did, so you felt like my mom went to work I would watch it, she explained this. I'm putting you in the school, I don't want you in trouble, here's your bag, here's your stuff, you don't have to ask nobody for nothing. I was drilled, and so my whole thing is, I just want everybody who, the cop said that I wasn't complying because I kept walking. My thing, if I had to say something to officers coming in from into the academy now, the 300 officers you have, is just because somebody is not compliant, just because somebody doesn't comply, doesn't mean they have to die or be in trouble. So you figure out why. We don't, and you have to be brave. We're brave. Ms. Iesha and the team, we're brave because we don't have a vest, we don't have a gun. But we step to somebody and we put ourselves on the line. We say, if this causes us harm, we'll accept this so that someone else doesn't go through it. And we don't even have a badge. We don't even have the badge or the proper training for this. We go out on standing on positivity and in a place of, we're gonna put ourselves on the front line in a safe way, if it's possible, as safe as possible. But there's no way to stay 100% safe because you never know what's in the next person's mind. But we still interact with those people. We still interact with a guy who has 3 names. This, that, and the third, and we got to figure out which one it is today, and we deal with that one today, and then we try again tomorrow. And if it's every day, then it's every day. But at some point, we have to step out of ourselves as officers, as people, as everybody, and say, what is the real issue, and how can we help it before I start tackling these people and changing how they feel about us before we even get a chance to send them to help. You could have crushed help. You basically crushed help that day. That's how I felt with the police. Like, Dad, I was supposed to go on and help and be a part of change in the city. From that day long, that day forward, it was just a downhill thing. So I just really wanted to say that way. So thank you.
I just want to add something to what Joshua was saying. You know, I've been working with young people for a very long time. And the story or the thread or the thing that I hear often from young African American and Latino males about the police is how they thought about them when they were kids. And I even heard my own grandchildren, you know, got a little badge that they give you, you know, and all of that. And, you know, usually the young person is excited about the fireman, about the police officer, because that's what they see.
We don't talk about firemen here, just police.
Okay. But you often see a young black and Latino male like looking out the window, they're looking at the officer. It used to be the beat cop, I remember the beat cop, and he would stop at, you know, when the kids were at the candy store and talk to them and shake their hands, so they had somebody that they recognized as a positive person in the police department. When I hear these stories, because I've been working with teenagers, you know, young adults for a very long time, and their story usually starts the way that his story started, the way that Larry's story started, and the way that Josh's story at Josh's age started. Basically the same. They wanted to be a cop, wanted to be an officer, or they liked the officer. And then the transition happens when they become teenagers. And so far too often, and I don't want to make a whole speech, but I need to make this real clear for the young people who are not in this room, who are not here, because they're going to be like, Miss Iesha, why are you just like softed it? You know, no, it's not soft. This is a damaging place for them when their interaction with the police is to be thrown on the ground, head banged, mistreated, all of this behavior that, like, going in their private parts. We did a whole testimony back when Kelly was the commissioner. We took testimony from young people. They didn't even know that we were setting up to do that with the American Civil Liberties Union. Most of the testimony said the same thing, and that there were certain officers who were known to mistreat young people, particularly invading their private parts and saying that they were looking for drugs. So my point is, because I'm always thinking, how do we move? Because it breaks my heart to hear those stories, right? And I've heard a lot of them. I'm not just saying this because Josh, I think when we met with Marjorie, one of our young people shared a similar kind of story as Josh did, and he's way younger than Josh. But to me, somewhere we need to have a greater provision of oversight on the behavior of officers that hold them accountable per incident. And that doesn't happen. There are people in precincts, and I know this for a fact, I've been in this precinct area and I've been interacting in this way for a long time, that there are behaviors that everybody knows that this person does, and it's like, you know, you got the pedophile uncle or the drunk uncle, and everybody say, oh, don't pay him no mind, you know, and they keep pushing it away. That's what it's been, and not just here. I hear other people share stories from conversations like this, and that those officers are never, like, I'm not gonna say never, but I'll say for the most part are allowed to stay as a functioning person in that precinct as if they are functional. And so you get that one person that has that behavior, and you get these new great officers, because I used to speak to every class that came in. You get these great officers, and next thing you know, you see them following him and his behavior, because that's the behavior they see in the precinct that goes uncorrected. Not that it's undetected, it's detected, it's clear, the complaints are the same over and over again. But that officer is allowed to stay there and exhibit that behavior and infect new officers and make that behavior okay. So what I would like to see, because it bothers me when I hear these stories. I would want if they wanted to be an officer, for them to be whatever they want to be, right? But this is the story, and you'll see the more you're having these conversations, that we're going to hear over and over and over again for years. You'll hear a father, a grandfather, and his great-grandson saying the same thing. And there's something wrong with that. When we took testimony, Kareem, I just want to remember, when we took testimony, we had fathers, we had the son, the father, and the grandfather. And some of them with the same experience with the same cop. You understand? In this community. So I just have to say, I don't want to be a voice in the room that's silent on this thing. I've heard this same kind of story too often. And when you say what could happen is the provision of oversight, the accountability has to be stronger. And I think that the hearing from the community, we just heard that we have an opportunity to choose our commander, that's one of the things that's being instituted. I think that that's a great thing. It's not a bad thing. The community has to have voice inside that precinct. The precinct should never have that railing outside with that feeling that Larry and Peter and them experience, and that I experience, not to let you in. Like there's something wrong with you if you come in here. So, and that's to keep our voice and our presence out. So I just think that we have to really do a major overhaul on how policing is done, and I guess that's what this is about. It's gonna take some work, but I think one of the first things is to weed out those officers who have consistent complaints in their folder, jacket, whatever you call it, and where commanders already know that that behavior exists and they've been letting it flow. It needs to stop.
I met earlier today with two ministers to reverence, and the topic of discipline. The topic of discipline always comes up. You just said a lot. I could talk.
I'm sorry.
I could talk for an hour on what you just said on many things. A lot of thoughts went through my head. Would you feel comfortable? I mean, I'm in a position, and it's a position where I have currently 54,000 men and women that work for me. So about 19,000 civilians, the rest are uniformed captains, chiefs, detectives, police officers. I'm incredibly proud of them. I am. I think they do amazing things on a daily basis, but I'm not dumb. And I know that what you said is true, and what everyone in this room said is true too. And that we do some bad things at times. Accountability. If we had a completely, here's what I think, here's what I know. If we had a system that people trusted, that if somebody does something wrong, they're going to be held accountable, and believed it, it would take care of so much of the problems that we are having today. And we are working on that. And there's a lot of work to do still. I think there's a culture at times, and people won't, people on one side won't like this, but I'm not afraid to say the truth. Like there's a culture at times of protecting people, and that just doesn't cut it. I mean, it's not, you've been quiet, so you can speak. I could tell you, I was we haven't talked about George Floyd. Hold on, let me start where I should start. I'm sorry that ever happened to you. Very, very brave young man, just talking about it. No, I'm a parent of 3. No 14-year-old should go through that. I mean, it just shouldn't happen. So I'm sorry you went through that. And, that's, a couple things I won't forget today. I won't forget, your talk, or yours, Larry, like the the one thing I tell my cops, and I told them at the academy last week, you know, I asked you what you would say. I know what I say because I say it every time. I stopped into a random class and just talked to the recruits. It's the simplest advice. Treat people like you would treat somebody in your own family. Not your crazy uncle who you ignore, right? But if you treat everyone as you would treat your mother or your sister or your brother, don't prejudge people. The world would be a lot easier. And then I tell them this. It's two things, but I count it as one. That they are in a unique position where they are sometimes all people have to rely on. And they're calling you because they have no one else sometimes. Treat that as a privilege where you can make a difference in people's lives. That's what makes our job so special. It's a good job. We make decent money. There's a lot of good. There's some tough days, but that's the special part of the job. And you can go to work and you can impact somebody's life. And just saying hello to them, just looking out for them, just protecting them, that's what I want them to hear and remember. But it's a double-edged sword because if you don't get it right, if you screw it up, you know, you encounter Peter today. I don't know what's happening to Peter today, but we're going to interact with you today, and Peter's going to remember that interaction. And you heard it here today. He remembers 5 years ago like it was yesterday.
5 years.
What if, so that I would flip that around and try to teach it into a learning lesson here. What if that officer had, you know, had a little different reaction with you that day? You'd be telling a good story today instead of a bad story. I mean, so that's kind of how I appreciate it and look at it, but you know, I could probably say the same thing to all of you at one point, but your story just resonated. But before I move on, and I would talk about maybe, you know, the crazy year we've had and George Floyd and what do people think about what's going on, you know, all over. But Jamel, thoughts, anything that you've heard? You want to jump in? You're right here, and you have a little different perspective. You see both sides.
Oh, it's just amazing how he mentioned his story, how one interaction can change his whole perception. He said that prior to the interaction, he was a positive kid, he's going to school. He has a negative reaction, a negative experience, which leads to negative, obviously, reactions, right? And now you feel like, wait, you put me to the other side. And it's interesting how you mentioned that, and it's amazing. And like the commissioner said, you ask officers, it's important that we educate our officers, especially the young ones coming in, that the power of your interaction. Your interaction can lead to a positive experience in someone's life, but also a negative one. But I do truly believe that most of our officers, you know, their engagement with the community, it's relatively a positive one. And especially, you know, a lot of times, unfortunately, as police officers, we're focused on the criminality. That's what we do, right? We look for criminals, we try to apprehend them, bring justice to the community. And we forget about the 99.9 good people that are out there. And that's where we're here today. We're just not focused on the negative aspects of the community with crime, but also the good people. We want to reach out to them. We reach out to the youth. And I don't know if the commissioner mentioned it, but we have now a youth officer program, which there's youth officers assigned to every precinct. And their job is really that 14-year-old kid. That youth officer's there today to reach out to that young kid that might have troubles, or redirect him from a life of violence to something peace, which Street Corner Resources represents. So I think we're going the right direction. I think we have great leadership thanks to Chief Shea and some of the programs that have been put forth in this community. But it's just amazing how profound, no matter your experience, can lead to how can change someone's perception. So I hope that every officer can learn from your experience and take that home today.
We put, thanks Jamel, we put almost 300 police officers last year, just to work with kids. That's what the captain is referencing, with youth coordination officers. And sometimes they deal with kids that are kind of getting into some, not so good stuff, but also it's just kids that need to be connected with services. Kids that just need, hey, my mom's working, my dad's not here, what do I do all day? And now you're like, oh, you need something to do? Become an explorer. Join a team that we're doing. We'll take you on trips. So just nothing bad at all. I think it's great. But, as we continue to think, and like captains like Altieri here are the future of the department, like how do we connect? Because that's meant maybe for a little younger kids, but maybe there's a role for people in this room where, all right, we got a cop, but the cop, let's be honest, the cop's 30 years old, 35 years old. Now we're trying to work with 14-year-olds. Who's the perfect bridge? Well, I'm looking at it, and then how do we start thinking a little differently about policing and working with the community? And, you're already doing a lot in this facility, but maybe we start combining. I think the best way to keep people, anti-violence, which we haven't talked about yet, right, is to keep them on the good path and before they get pulled towards a gang or things of that nature. So there's a lot of potential here.
I think too that, because I'm always having to think about how I think about young people, right? Because they're always in our space, they always bring different behaviors, and they also bring different issues, right? They come from a community where a lot of violence has happened, so we're in a trauma-infused community. And I try not to forget that when I see them acting out. Like, they'll catch me off guard, and it may not would have been the thing I wanted my grandson or my daughter to do, but I have to remember this is a different person, right? With different experiences, that they show up differently. And I think what happens with our young people in the community when they have been, involved with the system, so to speak, that they become a lot stigmatized sometimes in their own community. And it's usually by the police. Oh, I know that's the bad kid over there. So what you calling the bad kid never gets a chance when he's trying to be the good kid, right? And so I'm only raising that because there's so many young people that we engage with, and they say, oh yeah, but everybody said I was the bad kid. So they start acting like that for the rest of their life. They're on that cycle where everybody sees them that way. And I'm not saying it's all because of the police department. I'm saying as a community, and as someone who heads a community-based organization, that there has to be more connectivity. Like back in the day, I'm a little older than some of y'all in this room, but there was the youth officer, we knew who he was, right? And even if a kid was in a precinct, and even before I had an organization, they would call up and say, look, I got this kid, his mom's not home all the time, I need somebody to put some time with him, who do you think I should call? Like they would call and make those calls to connect that kid, And so we did a lot with the churches, the Salvation Army, and other organizations. I'm just saying that our oversight, and I know that the police department, like Captain Altieri said, that you're looking for the crime. That's the thing is to work on the crime. But at the same time, when we see these kids, and even when they're doing small criminal behaviors, we have to find out what the backdrop story is, because sometimes these kids are acting ugly and mean, talking bad. Maybe their brother got shot, and that's what I wind up hearing when I'm thinking about this kid. I'm like, why the hell is he acting like that? Why is he always angry? And then when you take him in and you sit down and you find out, he lost his big brother. His family had just got evicted from the neighborhood that he knew all his life because they had a criminal act happen. They live in the projects or whatever. So, we have to really take some time as an organization, Street Corner Resources, because I tell Josh and them all the time, I said, this is our work. It's not just, waiting for somebody to get shot. That trigger is pulled long before the trigger is pulled, long before the gun is in the hand. There's so many things that create the young person the way that they are, and I think part of that is the police. Part of that is the community. Part of that is the people who don't open the doors. The church who's only open on Sunday. The mosque who's only open on Friday. So I'm just saying, as a community, we have to really make more connectivity. You know what I mean? It's a full responsibility here, and that's why I value our relationship. But our relationship really should be happening with more cops than just this captain.
That's right.
You understand? It shouldn't be like he's the only needle in the haystack. Where is he? You know, he went to visit his family. I called him, he was like in his country. And he says, Iesha, I'm in Egypt. That's where your family's from, right? I'm like, oh God, I'm sorry, I didn't mean. I probably called him in the middle of his night there. So we should have more officers that we can pick up the phone and call, that they can pick up the phone and call us, that we build this communal relationship where we are in the business of help, and not that Iesha gets looked at as being wrong because she's the one that's screaming about the kids. No, we all should be screaming about our children.
Yeah.
You know, so that we don't see them incarcerated.
Right.
You know what I mean? And nobody gave voice to them or whatever. We should all do that. So I just want to make sure that
Well, we live in a time now where, if you think about it, we have little kids, right, taking tests to see who's gifted.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say I thought every kid was gifted.
Well, by the time they get to prison, they find their gift. Believe me, they find their gift in incarceration. We should find that gift when they're 5, 6 years old. You're right. Absolutely.
We didn't, this has gone very fast, and I warned everyone that I talk a lot. I want to hear from everyone again. We didn't get to talk about gun violence, and I really wish we had, but you're in the middle of that, so maybe that's another discussion. But let's just, I'll throw something out and you could comment on it. You know, the year that we've had with everything in New York City and protests, and I said to the two gentlemen I sat with today, I said, you know, I'd never want to see, from my view, you have a different experience. Your experience is your experience. From my experience, and for the men and women of this department, I never want to see May and June again. God willing. It was a tough time in our line of work. We're in a better place, I think, but there's a lot of work to do, and I think this right, Iesha? I think this is part of that work.
Oh yeah, absolutely. All of this is
it's
part
therapeutic. But real action and change has to come out of it too. What would you like to see, you know, the NYPD do? You're the police commissioner for a day. What would you do? What is something that we could do next week, next year, and you think it would really improve community relations? You're not shy, Christina.
No, I'm not. I feel like there should be some time, like every once a month, where I feel like the officers and the community should have that time to spend together. The same way that we're having this interaction, I feel like is the same way, like there should be some kids from the neighborhood, the people who are standing on the streets. The officers walk up to them rather than them coming up to them for a negative interaction. They're coming up to them to invite them to come spend time with them and get to know them, talk to them so that they can hear what's been happening, what's been going on. They could know how they can actually help the community get better, how they can step in to help people realize that not all cops are bad. They want interactions with people. And I really feel like that all goes back to one thing that I feel like should be put in place to help officers. I believe that it's not only just the people. I feel like we need to be concerned about the officers as well. I believe that there should be more people who are able to talk to cops, because I feel like officers have an extremely tough job, and they go through things, they see things that no one else sees. And sometimes that impacts their interactions with other people. So maybe if they didn't have so much on their shoulders, so much weight that they're carrying, they wouldn't have to go and bother people outside and give them all of this negativity to kill and harm black people just because they had a bad day, or just because they're thinking about something that they saw a week ago that hasn't gone away from them. It stayed with them. So I definitely feel like they need somebody to talk to as well. And I feel like it shouldn't be someone who's a part of the NYPD. It should be someone, they should feel comfortable talking to people in the community. They should feel comfortable talking to young people, asking so that we can ask them how their day is. They can ask us, and we can actually get some of their input on what we should do that can help them change their days.
What about inviting, would you consider inviting officers here or
We can-
vice versa?
To have dialogue? Yeah, we can do that. Actually, so I don't want you to think that these conversations with NYPD are new. Actually, Rodney Harrison, who's now
Good man.
the chief, Rodney came to the school, and I can call him Rodney because we worked
Yeah.
on the street when all of this violence was going on and there was no crisis management system. And
When he was the CO here,
he was
that
the-
far back?
Right, yes, when he was the CO at the 2-8.
Oh,
Not even the 3-2 yet.
Okay.
He was the CO at the 2-8. And then Lola Obey, Myers is doing drug enforcement right now. And there's another cop with red hair. I mean, I know them all. I would bring them inside the school. I would bring them to young people to talk to them because these are people that I trusted, right?
Here
To
is
talk
what
to
I
them.
would
So
say.
we would have those conversations. These conversations are not new.
I love one thing that you said when you called him and he's on his vacation. I hear those stories all the
Yeah,
time.
he picked up the phone.
And isn't that not, you know, as much work as there is at times, that gives you confidence and faith that, all right, we can do this, because you have also people like Jamel out there that, like, I hear that all the time, where I'm on vacation with my wife and kids, but you're talking to community members and, okay, I'll get caught. So that's the good news. But we have a lot of work to do. I want to push it down, though. And you mentioned Lola Obey, who's
Right.
now the chief in charge of school safety.
Right.
Rodney Harrison, the chief of detectives, and all these great leaders in the police department, but we need it pushed down to the police officers.
We need it
Yeah.
to and I think, you know, with all respect to them, I think that was the effort. I think having things trickle down and have impact is something that's not easy for even them to do, that it really has to start from your position.
Yes,
And
and
his
he's gonna make
position-
it happen.
Yeah, we gotta talk about him before you
Yeah.
go. But I think that what needs to happen is that we have to have a serious oversight provided, and not to strangle people or anything like that, but there has to be expectations and outcomes, right, in every precinct. That my mother texted me and she was asking about the precinct council meetings.
Yes.
Because she said some of the same people stay there,
Yeah.
and some of the same officers, so it's all a good old boy system. Everybody's looking out for each other, covering each other's butt, nobody can complain, nobody can say anything. So the restructuring comes from the very top, you know, or the reorganizing or the provision of oversight comes from the very top, and it has to trickle down so that it shapes something coming down that deals and serves the people, right? And so it doesn't mean that people have to be pulled out. You take people and you have to rethink things. I'm often having to rethink how I do stuff, right? And hear from, you know, our young people. I think in the precinct, rethink, what is a real oversight gonna look like? Real accountability, what is it going to be? What is the community saying? I think hearing from the community, us and others, and even the seniors, you know, and other folks is important. I mean, when, you know, my mother's, you know, I can't tell her age because she's watching and she'll get me.
Hi,
But
Mom.
she did, yeah, she did say, what about the precinct councils? Because it's the same people over and over and over again, and you don't hear new voices, new thoughts in the community, and it's the same status quo. And I get it, because me and her
Yep.
talked about this.
Larry or Peter, anything, last thoughts on, you know, what would you do or change, recommend?
Kind of what like Christina said. I would want like days where police would interact with the community, not just like events or holidays such as like 4th of July. Like I don't feel like we have to fear the police all the time, cause that's what it is. So I think if we just got to know the person that they really are outside of their uniform, I think that we would feel better. We would feel like we're talking to an individual, not just higher authority. So.
I agree. Anyone else before we go? Any thoughts? Peter?
I feel like there should be more police programs, you know, for kids, you know, that's on the streets, you know, let's say, you know, kids on the streets that's not
What
really.
age do you think? Are you talking like young kids?
Young
8,
kids.
12 or teens or late teens?
12 to 18.
Yeah,
There should be more police programs, kids, that's on the streets, not really doing, the right things. Encourage them to want to become police officers.
okay.
And
Joshua, you got the last word.
Oh, I think Christina had
Oh, okay.
I like the idea. I don't know how exactly policing works. Like, I don't know how you guys have to handle things, but I know that I listen to them, and I have my uncle who's a store owner. He said the same thing to me before. He's like, Josh, whatever happened to cops that used to be right here that we can rely on, that knows the community, and the importance of them knowing the community is so when we have a mental health issue with a guy, he's on the floor, the officer can come and say, hey, hold on, I know him. This is such and such. Hold on, you're right. Where your little poke at? You got it? No, all right. Whatever the thing is, this guy should know. His word means more to other officers or to a judge or to anybody more than just our word screaming, he didn't do anything, he didn't do anything. But a cop to walk up and know how to communicate with another officer on our behalf, and that we so wholeheartedly trust, because we can't trust the people that we place to do that, because we can't govern over it 24/7. We can't stand over, is he gonna do the right thing? Is he holding the integrity of the people he saving? So we have to just, to really get the trust going, everything we all say is good. Getting programs for kids, especially the young ones, so that not letting them go either, not waiting until they 12 and say, all right, you're out of our program. Know that in other stages, so that you do continue to spread your message, because people don't know what NYPD message is. If you go in a precinct and the signs hanging up in it, it may not say anything about, I don't know, I haven't been in a while, but I don't know what the signs are on the precinct. Is there any social justice on the wall? Is there anything that's saying that we know people are getting hurt? This precinct don't want to hurt anybody. So people don't understand that you guys have a wife and a kid at home that you want to make it to. So when people start to realize that we're all on the same playing field of trying to make it home, people don't understand that in the community. They look at cops as robo-cops. Shoot a guy and I'm going home. No, it has to be shown that when I shot that man, I suffered. My wife and kids lost a part of me that day. I don't want you to force me to have to do something, and I don't want you forcing me to have to change my life because my protocol or my system or what I'm being taught at the precinct or at wherever I'm learning how to be a cop at. I don't want to hear from a cop that this is my job, because if I'm a clandestine man, I'm not coming to cut your electricity if your father's hooked up to it with a ventilator and he can't breathe. So the same way a cop has to look at it and say, I'm not coming here to further cause you trauma. The big part of it is maybe, yes, you may have to get arrested, but getting arrested doesn't have to, it can be help. Being arrested should be able, even if they're not accepting of it, at some point he should come out the precinct like, yo, my last thing, I want to say one last thing, I'm sorry, y'all.
Because he gotta go.
I had a good cop help me one time. A cop that this changed helped me to see the both.
Ended on a good note.
Right. A cop came and really helped me out. I was surprised, it never happened. And, me and my mother needed help. And the situation was so shaky, just walking up into it, I was expected to be like just treated a certain kind of way. And the guy says, no, Mom, what happened, Mom? No, hold on, Mom. They just all kept saying Mom and making my mom so important on the scene because she was pregnant and she was like not feeling good. And the violent situation was already taken care of. They showed concern for my mom. And that made me feel good that day. And when I think that people understand that, yes, this is a pregnant lady, I'm a cop. Yes, I'm a cop, but I care about a pregnant woman. He's good? All right. Yes, let's get her help. I'll call the ambulance. Or whatever it is. Let people know that interaction is real. And it may be real, but we don't get to see it all the time.
So I'm getting the eye that we have to wrap up. But Josh, Christina, Larry, Peter, Iesha. But especially, your voices. I want to thank you for being honest and having this discussion, and Jamel and Iesha, thank you for the hosting and for what you do throughout the community all the time.
Thank you. I just want to say that I'm really grateful that we had this conversation. I know on Facebook people are probably going bananas because I got messages even before this started. Most of them were very, very supportive that we are at least beginning the conversation. So that's a good start. It may not be like everything everybody wanted us to talk about, but this was generic There was no big preparation. Matter of fact, I called Christina today. I said, we don't have a young lady represented. She showed up, your team made sure that it was okay, we did the seating. So I'm just saying, this was what it was. This is what came out. Can we have more conversations? Yes. And if, I really wanna work with our young people to make some presentation, written or what have you, or video in terms of what can happen. You know, you ask some questions, I think if we flesh them out more, that they can come up with some prototype that's a possibility within the police department for looking at how do you work better with young people. I think that that's key. That's a big issue for me, and it's a big issue for them, and I believe that they should put some time to it, and hopefully you all will consider some of the things, because we don't have enough time to flesh it out here, but that we are willing. Right, Christina?
Yes.
Okay, Larry and Peter? Right? Okay, so we're gonna put something together, they'll do that, and we'll make a presentation to you in terms of what the further conversation could have been, you know, around solutions. So thank you.
Thank you.
Officer Captain Altahiri, I call him Altahiri all the time. I said, could you please send me what your position is? Because I forget. But you know what? I just want to also say that he's very valued. And yeah, I want you to hear that because I don't say this often. So it's like that needle in the haystack.
Right.
And I think his work is exemplary of how we should have more officers work. So I don't know if that means you train, you know, whatever, run a precinct, I don't know, but I think that it needs to spread.
Did he pay you to say any of this?
Absolutely
No?
not,
Okay.
because I don't say this. I really don't. Our work was so hard during the beginning of the pandemic. We had people protesting, we had people who wanted to break windows, we had people who were just going through trauma just because their parents died.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah.
So because I don't usually, you know, have that kind of relation, but I didn't want people getting arrested because their grandmother died.
That's right.
And so, and different things. So people were like drinking a lot. Remember the drunk man and you took him home? He was like 80 years old. And he came and he took the guy home. I have to value that.
Yeah.
We were at a time where places were shut down, everything. It was a ghost town over here, right? And people were just like kind of going bananas.
We'll talk about his career later.
Okay, but
All right.
you know, we want, this for me, this is what we want to
That's
see.
right.
So I have to say that, and he didn't make me say anything.
That's an example.
Yeah, it's an example, absolutely.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Peace and blessings.